Do the prayer.
We thank you for everyone gathered here now, and thank you that you know each of us by name and have caused us to walk with you. We say that we are dependent on you, and our trust is in you completely. As we surrender ourselves in adoration, we ask that you would come by your Holy Spirit and inspire our hearts today. Come fill our lives with your love, fill our conversations with your grace and truth, fill this meeting with your presence. We ask this for your glory and praise. Amen.
Amen. Before we do mayor's reports and reports of the committees, I would like to ask for a motion and a second to suspend the agenda to hear a presentation by our appraisal systems on the revalve of the town. Also here with us will also be our tax assessor, Angela Matisse. I have a motion by Don, second by Paul. Clerk, take the roll.
Mr. Bjork?
Yes.
Ms. Saracolo?
Yes.
Mr. Ritchie?
Yes.
Mr. Schaaf?
Yes.
Mr. Shalero?
Yes.
Mrs. Sherman?
Yes.
Angela, would you like to come up and introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Angela Matisse, tax assessor for the Borough of Waldwick. We're here tonight because we have been ordered by the New Jersey Business Taxation to comply with a district-wide revaluation. We have Rick Del Guercio from Appraisal Systems here to present three, different scenarios of how we can accomplish the same goal.
I have some handouts.
Just have a pull the mic down.
Just pull it through.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so my name is Rick Del Guercio, and I own and operate a revaluation company. Revaluation and reassessment, those two terms can be used. Difficult to explain other than simplest way is to say that a reassessment is typically done in-house by the assessor with staff. Revaluation is outsourced to a company to do, the entire job with the assessor taking a role as a supervisor. Revaluation has been common in the last 50 years or so, primarily because most assessors don't have in-house staff in order to do what it takes to do a soup to nuts mass revaluation. It requires a lot of inspectors going out and staff answering phones and so forth. So reassessment is something that is less costly than a revaluation. Revaluation is something that is done in a municipality where the data and every aspect of the data is scrubbed and everything is started from scratch. But in recent years, my firm, myself, I've been promoting the reassessment, the in-house reassessment, whereby the assessor takes an active role in doing the assessment, and my firm supplies the necessary tools and staff and supplies in order to accomplish that. It's a means by which you can get from point A to point B being the same exact result as a revaluation, but it's less costly to do so. I've done a revaluation here in Waldwick. I think I've done it twice before. I've worked with Angela in several other towns. I've worked in this town. It's been a while, but it seems like just yesterday I was here doing the full revaluation. The data that Angela is currently working with is data that I compiled 10 years ago? 2005, wow. And I think the data is sound, and I think that I don't think it's necessary, in my opinion, to completely scrub out all of the data on file and to pay for an entire new data set. I think that would be an unnecessary cost for the town. Obviously, you can disagree, and the assessor can disagree, and you can go forward with a revaluation. But the fact that you've been ordered to do a revaluation, we have successfully petitioned the board to replace revaluation orders with a reassessment because of the fact that what I just said, a reassessment essentially accomplishes the exact same thing as a revaluation. And that's two goals. One, bring all assessments up to their fair market value. And number two, and equally number two, to do so in a equitable way so that the tax burden is distributed fairly and equitably across the board. We can accomplish that with revaluation. We can accomplish that with reassessment. So in the first several pages of what I supplied in the packet, I'm giving you somewhat of an idea of what a cost would be for, at least my cost would be, for a full-blown revaluation versus a reassessment. Now, there's another nuance to reassessment which is really caught on in Bergen County. Quite frankly, the rest of the state, all the other counties in the state. And that is to do a full reassessment, similar to a reval, as I explained, but then follow that up each and every year with, we'll call it a maintenance program. Technically, we'll be doing a reassessment every year, but it won't be a full reassessment every year. It will be like maintaining those assessments each and every year. And it's caught on in Bergen County, specifically in the last, 5 years, because, the model of doing a revaluation and then waiting 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, in this case, over 15 years, it just doesn't seem to work anymore. I've been doing revaluations for 30 years, and back in the 90s and early 2000s, it did work, but there has been so much volatility in the market, not just on a year-to-year basis, but on a month-to-month basis, that when I come up with assessments as of October 1st of any given pre-tax year, within 2 years, those numbers they're off, just based on outside market forces. Could be up, could be down. About 10 years ago or so, I remember putting on revals in 2006, 2005, 2007, and y'all remember what happened in 2008. By 2009, none of those revals that I had put on prior to 2007 were effective. They had to be redone via reassessment. So, these municipalities are finding they're paying a lot of money to set assessments as of a specific date, but then because of the volatility of the market that we're experiencing, and I think is going to continue into the future, a year or two goes by, and all that money that the municipality spent on the reval is kind of, it's stale at this point. So if you take the original model and the work that you do for this full reassessment, and each year you look at the past year market data for residential's, comparable sales, for commercials, income streams, and sales, and cost to construct figures, and you essentially calibrate your model from the reassessment to meet those current forces, you can keep pace with the market on a year-to-year basis. Now, if you look on the packet that I served, third page, starting with the third page, I just put some of the benefits of doing a maintenance program in bullet format. Just to touch on a few of them. One of the things that has always made revaluation a thing to fear. Governing bodies have always feared revaluations. Citizens have always feared revaluations. The stigma associated with revaluations is based on one thing and one thing only, and that's the shifting of tax shifts, if you will. It hurts a large segment of the community. There's an old adage, when you do a reval after 10 years, a third of the properties are going to go up, a third of the properties are going to go down in taxes, and a third will stay relatively the same. Now, sometimes that holds true, sometimes it doesn't, but rest assured that third that's going up, sometimes it's a huge jump in taxes in 1 year, from a non-reval year to a reval year. I don't know if any of you have been through reval or remember the reval last time we did it, but, you know, a good bunch of neighborhoods here saw anywhere between $500 to $1,500 tax increases in 1 year. That's a result of a tax shift. A tax shift is created, can only be created when long periods of time pass between doing anything with the rateable base. If you're adjusting assessments each and every year, you will not have tax shifts. There's not enough time to create a tax shift, because the minute that you see certain property classifications or certain neighborhoods or certain property types either increasing above the norm or decreasing below the norm, you fix it right away, okay? So the elimination of shifts, I think, is a good thing, not just for the residences, but quite frankly, for the assessor and myself, because it's tough to deal with tax shifts and those on the wrong end of the tax shift. One of the other things that's key, the second bullet point I talk about, is keeping your ratio at 100%. So what I mean by ratio is each and every year after you do a revaluation, the state does a study where they take the current sales, divide them into the assessments, and then they average whatever that equation comes to. So for example, if the market goes up uniformly across the board by 10%, after a revaluation, your ratio will be somewhere around 90%. And the state, in their wisdom, when they came up with this formula, 100 years ago or whatever, it worked because property values just kind of crept up, and they crept up evenly. But that program just doesn't work now, because there is no such thing as every single property class in a town like this going up exactly 10%. You may have a certain type of, you might have residentials go up 10%, but not the commercials, or vice versa, or certain types of commercials within the commercial market area that go up, but not others. And so it's kind of across the board. You can't just paint it with a broad brush. Yet the state still does that ratio program. And when that happens, and I think the attorney can attest to what I like to call ratio cases, where tax attorneys will come in and they'll take advantage of that ratio dropping in town-wide, but not for other property types. The example I use in the packet here is you have an office building that didn't appreciate 10%, but yet the state is saying that it did because of the town-wide ratio. By the way, which is primarily driven, when they use a sampling, it's mostly residential sales. Sometimes it's just the condos. But they apply that formula to all property. It's really unfair when you think about it, and it should be changed, but that's what we have, and that's what we have to live with. And so you could have an office building that is assessed properly, but a year or two after the revaluation, the ratio drops down to 90, 80%, and now the town is required to justify or defend that assessment on the office building at the assessment equalized by 20% higher. It's rather unfair. And I like to call these ratio cases. And a lot of these ratio cases, the tax attorneys out there, they find these properties, and it's a loss of revenue to the town via appeal that is really a hardship, and they're taking advantage of an unfair ratio program. And to make matters worse, as you all know, tax refunds that are given by the municipality, the school is not giving back their cut. So if you're school is taking 50, 60 cents on every tax dollar, which it probably is. 70? Okay. Anytime there's an appeal on one of these situations I just spoke to, you're giving all of it back. So it really does create a financial hardship on the municipality. Now, you maintain through this program, through this maintenance program, you maintain it each and every year, you stay at 100%, and you eliminate these ratio cases, and you eliminate these costly appeals on the basis of ratio altogether. You know, you're always going to have appeals each and every year, but by doing a maintenance program, you will never have high exposure. I talked about ratio cases, for example. I mean, you might have a situation where you have certain classification of commercials that just happen to, you know, it's their turn to have a bad go of it. You know, through COVID, we saw, you know, the restaurant industry really suffered, but the garden apartments didn't. You know, or, you know, right now the industrial market is super hot, but the retail market maybe not so much. And that's the other thing I want to talk to is that in a non-reval, the year after the revaluation, there may be a spike in the industrial market, and the assessor cannot capture that increase of assessed value. The state does not allow the assessor to move numbers based on market forces unless they do an approved program like reassessment. Unfair? It's unfair. That's the way it is. And rest assured, if that same industrial market were to tank, the assessor doesn't have to adjust it because it'll be adjusted through the appeal process. So you see where I'm going with this. It's a complete lose-lose situation for the town where if you have, you know, two properties, one gained 10% of value and one lost 10% of value, the assessor can't change the one that gained. And then one that dropped appeals and they get it adjusted. Now, you do a maintenance program, and before the appeal season, you make that adjustment. So it's a net zero. You'll take one down, but you'll increase another. And so, you know, that's another reason that we do it. You know, and then just overall, just the equity. I mean, there's a lot of instances where the assessor has to deal with questions about someone coming in saying, you know, I guess my assessment's okay, but how come the person across the street has the same assessment or has the same house as me, but they're paying $1,000 less in taxes? Well, you know, over time, these inequities happen, you know. So it's just giving, you know, uniformity on a year-to-year basis as opposed to letting it get away too far from the reval. The first year the reval's done, everything is fair, but it just erodes over time. So the middle portion of this packet is essentially, you know, this is the scope of services you could read, and you can see in reading this that the reassessment program is essentially the same as a revaluation, and each year during what I like to call the maintenance, it is still a reassessment. All of the same items that you see in the scope of services are performed. The reason why there's a drop in value on a year-to-year basis after the reassessment is because it's just a lot easier to manage a maintenance, you know, based on a model that we just created in the year one. Now, as I started, this concept is catching on in a lot of other municipalities in Bergen County. I think we're up to about 30-some. Almost half the county is doing it this way. In my opinion, it is kind of the way for the future, I think. And, you know, there's a lot of municipalities, you know, just around, you know, Northwest Bergen that are doing this. You know, Oakland, Paramus, Woodcliff Lake, Allendale, you know, they've all been doing this for several years now. Woodcliff Lake has actually been doing it for almost 10 years now. the last few pages are just, just credit to, statistically, credit to what I've been talking about, where, what I do is I put a spreadsheet where I show, the 3 years prior to starting the program, and then the program itself. And if you look at some of the columns, these are just examples of other towns that have been doing this for some time. In every case, you clearly see a substantial drop in the amount of tax dollars that are refunded via the appeal process, because you're coming up with the correct answer. When a town loses an appeal, it's because the answer is not correct. And the answer is not correct because it hasn't been done in many, many years. When the answer is worked on each and every year, it's correct. Therefore, there's really not much left to appeal. And it shows in the statistics. But the one thing that is really telling, and that I put on this spreadsheet, is the average residential assessment, it does, in an up market, it does click up. In a down market, it will click down. But what it does is it actually helps bring stability to your taxes, because it keeps the tax rate stable. Each and every year, the budget is memorialized in the spring, and it's essentially just a very easy formula. It's the three budgets: county, school, and local, divided into the net taxable base. So when your net taxable base is not changing, or your net taxable base is slowly being eroded through appeals, and there's not enough added assessments in order to offset that, and you're combined with your budgets going up 2%, 3%, what have you, your tax rate is basically ballooning each and every year. But when you start to capture, those areas that are increasing, specifically in the commercial market, what you're doing is you're adjusting the first part of that formula, where you're changing the net taxable. So now, when you divide your budget each and every year into a changing net taxable, the result is you're actually bringing more stability to your tax rate each and every year, and that bears itself out. If you look at the third, the third column here, or the first column, the tax rate, in all these municipalities, you can see how it fluctuated greatly prior to the program, but after we implemented the program, it brought stability to the tax rate. So, one of the criticisms that I've heard some people say is, well, people, if their assessment's going to change each and every year, how will they get some sense of where their taxes are going to be, or how can they budget for their taxes each and every year? And the answer is, well, without doing reassessment, it changed, your taxes changed every year. We know that. Sometimes more than others, but in our program, our public relations effort is such that whenever we do new assessments, we always send out the letters, and we have a website, and we have discussions with people, showing them what's going to happen with their taxes. And I think we do a pretty good job of relaying to the taxpayers, yes, your assessment did go up, but if you plug into our tax impact calculator, your taxes are probably most likely either going to stay the same, or they're going to go down a little bit. Some might go up, but the degree to which you have that movement is far, far less than by doing nothing at all. So, again, I do revaluations. That's my entire career. My company has performed revaluations, and we're happy to do a revaluation for the town. I'm just here tonight to just speak to something I've been doing in a lot of the other municipalities. And either way, I'm happy to answer any questions that you have, or...
Anyone have any questions for Rick? Yeah. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you for that presentation. That was very informative compared to me reading it and trying to understand what you said, so thank you. You answered a couple of questions I jotted down as you were speaking. One of the things that comes to mind is we're in a really unusual market, and so I'm trying to figure out, I know we're ordered to do the reval reassessment, but is this the right time to do this? I mean, is this a true, will we get an accurate picture of what the true value of homes are?
Well, yeah, that's a good question, and that leads to one of the reasons why I would enter into a program where you did an adjustment each and every year. So, for example, 2 years ago, when I was doing revaluations, people were concerned, and the term COVID sales first started to be thrown out. If I had done a one-and-done revaluation, yeah, it was a concern. But following it up with a maintenance program, I was able to tell the community who was concerned, okay, let me see where these sales are going. And if it is a anomaly and it's going to dial back down, we'll immediately adjust before anyone gets hurt by it. So, and that still holds, by the way. So if you were to, say, put on a reassessment for, as of October 1, 2022 for 2023, okay, and then in the spring of 2023, mortgage rates went up another 2%, we're in a recession, and all of a sudden the housing market came down 10%, well, you immediately adjust for that. And so no one gets hurt by that. Not to mention, if you didn't do anything and that happened, you would have an influx of appeals that would be really hammered it down.
So in regard to the number of years you reassess for, your proposal calls for, I guess, 6. But it sounds like it's something you should be doing every year, even beyond 6 years. My question mostly is, you're looking to lock in a cost for 6 years, or I guess the initial year, then 5 more years. But things happen in municipalities. I mean, are we locking into a contract for 6 years? Can we skip a year if we can't do it? How does that look?
Okay, so the state ultimately has to approve this program. And the state requirement is that it be a minimum of 4 years following the reassessment. So there is no getting out from under what I like to call the year 1. Year 1 is the full reassessment. Okay, you've been ordered to do a revaluation. The assessor, Angela, and I would petition the board. Yes, we've been ordered to do a reval. We're going to do a thorough reassessment, lay out the specs of that, and my guess is they'll approve that. Once that's put in place, now you're actually, following year is when you're actually starting the program of maintenance, or an annual reassessment, if you will. The state minimum is 4 years. So the town can elect to do 4, 5, 6. It's up to you. Now, this is important to note. If you were to do the 4 years, and if you were to then redo another 4-year cycle, okay, you don't have to do that year 1 ever again. In other words, if a town does this annual reassessment in perpetuity, they will never do a reval again. That's a fact.
Thank you, Mayor. Anyone else? Yes.
Hi. Thank you, Rick. First off, we got a handout from you dated February 2020. The one we got in our council packet was February 2022. It's a very similar document, but I don't know if that's the first page you gave us tonight.
Yeah, that's either a typo, or I might have given you a quote. Back then? Yeah. I mean, this has been something that's
Yeah,
been kind of...
we have a very similar letter dated February 1st, 2022. There's a couple changes.
Yeah, that should be 2020.
That's okay. Now, you had mentioned that, I guess it was the Bergen County Board of Taxation is the one that orders the reevaluation, and then you've been mentioning the state. Can you kind of clarify what entity is requiring what, and why are they asking for a reval, and why won't they just ask for a reassessment?
So the county Board of Taxation is empowered by the Division of Taxation to study each of the municipalities within their district and make a determination if a reval is needed. Some of the criteria they use is, the number of years that go by between revals, the town ratio that I spoke to when it falls to a certain level. They look at something called a coefficient of deviation, which measures the uniformity of assessments, among other things. So once the County Board of Taxation determines that a reval is needed, and they subsequently order the town to do it, when the municipality puts a contract together, the state still likes to get involved to make sure that whatever program the county is allowing the state to do, the town to do, the state likes to throw their 2 cents into the mix as well and say, okay, we want to know what you're doing as well.
Mm-hmm.
So they have to put their stamp of approval on it as well.
Okay. And am I correct in you said that the last time that the state or the Bergen County Board of Taxation demanded a reevaluation was way back in 2005?
Right?
So although our numbers may be amiss, they weren't amiss so far that we got called out any time in the last 17 years. And
Yeah, I think we had to do something in between that time, like a program like this, because '05 would have meant that I put numbers on that were pretty high.
Mhm.
And then the market tanked universally everywhere in '08. So I think we did do something to adjust that
Okay.
in between.
You presented a lot of charts which are helpful for those towns, and I was already thinking, okay, I'd like to know some data about Waldwick. I can certainly ask, outside this meeting later of Angela, but like how many tax appeals have we had, number of commercial properties that we have, the valuation, the percentages, and all that stuff to decide if it's worth spending $60,000 a year on this. These ratio cases, I mean, it seems to me a tax attorney was going to go after a big property, like a $15 million valuation. I don't really know or have a feel for how many of those type properties we actually have in our town, but I'm sure a tax attorney is going to look for the bigger ones. The other thing I had was like you had said, the effect on the homeowner, saying, listen, I like getting my card every year. My house is supposedly worth $610,000. I've seen it every year for a zillion years. It doesn't bother me. I think philosophically it's going to be troublesome, but you said you've dealt with that with residential homeowners and seeing it go up and down each year and hoping that they're getting a fair shake. And also, obviously, if this is an effective program, at some point, we're going to have such a little amount of appeals that the $60,000 is going to be more than we would be saving, correct?
Well, I mean, that's the goal.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the goal, but then my response to that would be that the goal is to make sure that you
Absolutely.
get back up to
Yeah,
that
I
level
mean, maybe the
above and
4
beyond.
years is a
Yeah.
better approach. If it works that well, we may be great after 4 years, and we got such a little amount of appeals that obligating ourselves to a fifth year isn't really necessary.
I mean, you can reevaluate after 4
Yeah.
years.
Thank you very much.
I have a question for you. In your first page, it says here that an exterior and interior inspection will be performed on every home. What happens if the resident doesn't want you in their home? I mean, we have a lot of elderly residents that sometimes they're kind of leery of letting anybody in. Is there another way that you figure out the formula?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. I mean, the process of interior and exterior, it is something that is put on me as a requirement by both the county tax board and the state. They do require, in order to get the most accurate appraisal, that we do go inside these. Now, one of the things that has changed in recent years based on COVID is that we are now doing virtual inspections. And it's very popular, and quite frankly, it works. Our field inspectors are adept at either being at the door, outside, and going on the various apps on the smartphones and just walking the homeowner through the different areas of the house to see whatever it is they need to see, the kitchen, the bathrooms, and so forth. I found it, I was a little skeptical at first, but I found it worked very well, and it definitely got us through 2020 where nobody wanted us in the house, let alone seniors.
But what happens if a person feels that if they don't let you in, nothing's gonna happen to their taxes? What do you do then?
Well, that, again, we follow the requirement of both the county and the state, which states very clearly that if we don't get inside a home, we estimate to the highest, most reasonable potential. And I'm not paraphrasing, those are the exact words. What that means is that if we look at a house and other houses in the neighborhood have updated the kitchens, updated the bathroom, finished the basement, put a bathroom in the basement, it's reasonable for us to assume the same is done here. And one of the things that I like to say in public presentations when that question comes up, and it always comes up, is that I must give the assurance, at the end of the revaluation, reassessment, we will have gotten into 90% or more of the homes. 10% you're most likely not going to get into for whatever reason. But I need to give the assurance to the 90% that did let us in that there will be no tax advantage to the 10% that did not. And that is much more well received by those 90% of the other folks than the 10% who still don't want to let us in.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Mayor, do you expect people maybe not even to want them on their property as opposed to even inside the house?
Well, look what happened when we tried
I
to
know.
do stuff with the, fixing the meters or looking to see the water.
So I mean, it's kind of an open-ended question, it probably can't be answered, but let's say you've got the 10% of the people that won't let you in the house, and then you got, of that 10%, they don't even want you on the property. Obviously, you can, go on Google Earth and see the home from above or
Oh, you get a
from
pretty
the
good
street,
idea.
yeah.
Yeah, you get a
But
pretty
what, I mean, again, I kind of know a little bit about how your taxes are generated by, whether or not you got a finished basement or an attic and stuff like that, but if you can't get in, if you see condensing units outside, you're going to know they have central air conditioning.
Yeah.
So how important is the interior inspection to get an accurate?
It can be pretty important. I
Yeah.
mean, my experience is that sometimes you look at a house that looks like a average or typical from the outside, average or typical 1970s split level, and then you go inside and you're wowed.
Yeah.
Okay? And then right next to it, you see a 1970s split level, and it's run down inside.
Mhm.
Standing on the street, you can't tell one from the other. But guess what? When those properties sell, they could sell $200,000, $200,000, $300,000 apart.
Yep.
And that's why it's important. Now, the other thing that the assessor alerted me to, which is important, is when we do the first year, it is a requirement that we go to 100% of the properties and get into as many interiors, preferably 100% of the interiors. But then each and every year, it starts to become redundant to do something that thorough. So we do a 25% sampling. Inspection on everything is reassessed, but just from a standpoint of verifying the data, we do a 25% sampling each year over the 4 years. Yeah, mandated. So over a 4-year site, and in each year, 25% of a different section. So that over a 4-year period, over, say, a 5-year period, year 1, full reassessment, 4-year cycle, right? Over that 5-year period, everyone will be inspected twice.
And
Once, everyone initially, and then at some point over the 4 years, you will be inspected.
and if and when this is done, a letter goes out to the residents explaining to them what you just said.
Yes,
That if we don't get into your house, we look at the house next door, and if that looks a certain way, we're under the assumption your house is the same way.
yes,
And they know all this.
Yes.
They all be told all.
yes. And also, by the way, when I talked about estimating to the highest, most reasonable potential, we leave a notice clearly stating what we have done. And if it's incorrect, call us and we'll come back out.
Anyone else?
I have a question. Are these municipalities in the back of the packet ones that your company has reassessed personally or just for reference?
The ones I've done.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else?
I was wondering if we could hear from Angela about her thoughts on the two options.
I'm presently doing 4 of the town's annual assessments. So I can attest to the fact that the program enables me to capture the market each and every year, alleviating a lot of tax appeals. The law has changed in the past few years, which does not, homeowners do not have to pick up a permit now for kitchens and bathrooms. So unless it's being advertised for sale, I don't know that that work has really been done. And it's affecting the ratio because, you know, I have this house that has a bathroom and a kitchen from 1965. Unbeknownst to me, it's been completely redone. So that's also affecting our ratio. This program enables us to stay on top. In some of the municipalities that I do work in that have bigger commercial base or industrial base, it's enabled us to capture that market, to adjust for the retails, which gone down in every town that I work in. The retails have gone down, but the industrials have increased, and that has substantially changed the rateable base. And a lot of the municipalities that I presently worked for before, the tax rate has actually come down this year because of the change to the assessments. I think it's a terrific program. The one and done doesn't really work. Any question?
Anyone else? No, we'll just think about all this. We're just given this to us as a presentation.
It's a lot to digest.
I'm sorry?
It's a lot to digest.
Yes, yes. But if you could just get to us
Anyone has any questions, you know, feel free.
so could you let us know how many,
Tax appeals?
right,
Yeah. And
like in the last 3
I
years?
mean, currently, I was speaking with the borough attorney this afternoon and showing him the ratios that I have right presently on the current sales are ranging anywhere from 50 to about 78%. So, I mean, they're all over the place. So there's a lot of inequity.
Thank you.
Mayor,
Yes.
Rick, I was wondering if you could maybe just make sure I'm interpreting the South Hackensack chart correctly, because when we get our numbers, I'm going to play around with this
Yeah,
and try to
yeah.
make an educated decision. Maybe you can just kind of run us through that. I think I see what I think I see, but you never know. It's always worth it. So the South Hackensack is the first one. I guess there's, 827 properties?
Yeah,
And 2001 through 2013 is prior to this program, the gap in the chart, and then the program was instituted in 2014, correct?
right, right.
Okay. So, as you said, the tax rates were kind of bouncing all over the place in column 1
Right.
prior, and the ratios were getting further and further from 100%, which makes sense, and your average assessed, that was another question I actually had, so, you know, we always like to tell everybody your taxes are going to go up this or that based on the average assessed home, and,
Yeah.
you know, that's going to, I guess that gets reproduced every year as well, right?
In smaller increments.
Right.
You know, when a revow, that's where there's this drastic change.
Yes, yeah.
And that's what confuses people. Like, you know, I don't understand how it can go from this number to this number in 1 year. And it's one of the most common questions I have with the public, where, no, that was your assessment from 2005,
Yeah, yeah.
not from last year.
Especially if we got like a big school project going on
Yeah,
or something,
exactly.
but okay. All right, so then the average taxes were in the neighborhood of 8,400 to 9,100, and you can see obviously the number of appeals that were filed at the county level, correct?
Yes.
35, 30, and 59. And then what's the total reduction? That's what they were asking to have it reduced? Is that what that means?
No, that's what they won.
That's what they actually won.
Yeah, that was a successful tax appeal.
Okay.
at the county tax
In
board.
dollar values of their actual assessed value, and then the tax refund
Yeah.
is how much they actually got credited back.
Correct.
Okay. So if I'm looking at those numbers, comparing that to the yearly cost of $60,000 for this service, the town only saved, is that right, 35, 47, and 63 those 3 years? I mean, I shouldn't say they saved. That's how much they.
Well, but in, you know,
Spent.
Hackensack, I'm doing that one for
No,
a
I
lot
know.
less than what I would, you know,
Okay, that's, I
It's a
just want to make
tiny
sure.
little town.
That's why I
so-
say, when I do
Yeah.
my own chart, I'm going to look at that and
Yeah.
say, listen, 60,000 makes sense, we're saving, 120 every year, or are we saving 50,000? It doesn't make sense. And then the state appeals, so some tax applied at the state level as opposed to at the county level?
Yes, typically, commercials go to the state.
Okay,
If the assessment is less than 1 million, you must file at the county.
okay,
If it's more than 1 million, you can go right up to the state house.
okey-doke. Okay,
The one thing, though, that isn't in here, which I think it was Closter, one of Angela's towns, Closter. I
yeah,
guess,
that's
presentation.
actually in here.
Right,
So,
where,
yeah.
what I did was, I took a spreadsheet of all of the sales that took place that were current as of when I gave the presentation to the council. And each of those sales that currently was below what the assessment was. And so I said, rest assured, this will be an appeal. Okay, the tax attorneys will find this. This is an appeal. So, for example, the assessment was $500,000. I had it on the spreadsheet, and right next to it, an actual sale that took place of $450,000. This will be an appeal, and the assessor will settle this appeal. There is no case. It's an actual sale, right? And I added all these in the aggregate, right? And the total amount of refund, just on those sales, exceeded by 3 times
Your fee.
what my fee
Yeah.
was.
Understood.
And I said, none of these will, if you implement this today, none of these will be appealed, because every one of these will be lowered to their sale price, hence taking away the appeal. So just based on that. That didn't even
Certainly,
include.
there's more cost to the municipality in time and effort by our tax assessor and all the work that goes into it, as opposed to just how much money we're writing back a check for, I understand.
Right.
But, okay, thank you.
And then the last point I would make, and as you can see, there's multiple years here. I can report that 100% of the towns, and there's, I think, over 30 of them now, I think, 100% of the towns, after the 4-year cycle or the 5-year cycle, renewed for another 4-year or 5-year cycle. And obviously, you can use any of these towns as a reference if you know any of the attorneys, administrators, council people from those towns.
Anyone else? Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, now we'll continue with our meeting. Under the mayor's report, just a couple of items. I just want to thank the Chamber of Commerce for doing the 5K this year. It was a great day. The weather was perfect. They had over 500 walkers and runners. And I want to thank Councilman Sherman and Councilman Shalero, who was there running. I guess you did well. We were very happy with your scores, or however they rated you. And this year, they dedicated the 5K to fallen firefighters, fallen police officers, and also police officers in general for their hard work to the communities. It was a nice day with everybody in attendance. Also, on May 15th, we had the Girl Scouts from Troop 98135 come to the town hall here, and then also to the 9/11 Memorial at the Wyckoff Avenue Firehouse to do their yearly planting. This has been going on for about 9 years since I've been mayor. They call us up and they ask us if they could get involved in some type of a chore to do for their badges and everything. And we supply them with the flowers, and what they do is they come here and they set everything up. We set everything up for them and they plant. This year there was 18 girls. I'd like to announce their names. One of them is Madeline Strong. Then there's also Madalena Kaminsky, Poppy Fisher, Lila Flanagan, Annie Whiting, Sophia Ritchie, Sophia Grasso, Paige Demers, Leela Reyes, Maya Busey, Ava Rutz, Emily Buser, Grace Brzezinski, Samantha Arnaldi, Carol Song, Abigail Lanis, Madison Vo, Olivia Estravez. They were at the both places. Their moms, there would be about 12 moms that were here with them also. And then as a treat, the mothers had the ice cream truck come into the parking lot here, and the kids had their ice cream. And they were very happy about being involved in the community. They look forward to next year. and we look forward to giving them the opportunity to receive their badges in whatever they're doing for their troop. Also, just like to let everyone know, on June 5th, once again, the Waldwick Community Alliance will be having their car show. It's a great day. So if you're around Waldwick, please go there. Chuck and his group does a great job, as always, and they'll have music, bands, and they'll have all different types of cars for everyone to walk around and see. That's all I have for my report. Financial Administrative Committee, Mr. Shalero.
Thank you, Mayor. Last week, we had the monthly meeting of the Library Board of Trustees. A couple of things that I want to mention is, there's a lot more material available that's electronic, and we introduce new items all the time to our collection. More recently, one of the things we've added is an electronic subscription to the Wall Street Journal. So if you're a journal reader or a former journal reader and you want to get back to reading it, it is available through the town library. And I think you could just access it with your regular library card. You create a username and password to access the daily edition. So look at that. A couple of things that's, I guess inevitable, but it's always sad when we have two valued longtime employees announce their retirement this year. One is Dot LaHost, who's worked for the library for many years as a part-timer, and another is Annette Gordon, who's been a full-timer for 32 years. Both will be retiring this year. So when we're putting together some plans to recognize their contributions, they'd like a proclamation and some other things.
Just give me some information.
We'll work that out with the mayor. So, bittersweet news. Happy for them. I know Dot's a new grandmother, and she's going to enjoy that. But, we're going to be sorry to see them go. They're going to be hard to replace. And that's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you. Fire and Police Protection Committee, Councilwoman Siricola.
Thank you, Mayor. So for the fire department, they've so far had 12 calls this month. This past Sunday, they responded into the city of Patterson to cover them while they operated at a 3-alarm building fire. The drills have been consisting of members completing mandatory mask fit, which is a New Jersey state requirement, in order to wear a self-contained breathing apparatus. Members have also spent most of the month doing SCBA training drills to get used to the newer packs that the department has been purchasing for them. The department also assisted NJ Transit with a smoke condition from a train this past Saturday afternoon. It seemed that the batteries caught fire, so transit representatives had the fire extinguished prior to their arrival. And then the Waldwick Fire Department assisted in checking for extension and make sure that there were no more flare-ups. Also on Saturday morning, members took the time to go out and put American flags and exempt flags on past members' grave sites in honor of Memorial Day at 5 different cemeteries. As far as the police department, the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration today announced the launch of the annual Click It or Ticket National Seatbelt Enforcement Mobilization with the goal of reminding drivers that seatbelts save lives. The $10 million paid media campaign will run through May 16th through June 5th, featuring radio, TV, and digital ads, and the public awareness campaign will coincide with special enforcement efforts, during which state and local law enforcement agencies across the country will be issuing tickets to drivers who choose not to buckle up. The Waldwick Police participate in this every year, so you should start seeing and hearing PSAs regarding the same. There's also a sign outside of the building. And that's all. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Public Safety Committee, Councilman Schatz.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I attended the Waldwick Ambulance Corps meeting the other night, and they had, as I mentioned before, they had 43 calls last month, with 3 of them from out of town, going out of town. They also are giving out their scholarship scholarship this month. They haven't given me the names yet, but when I do, I'll let you know. Thank you.
Thank you. Recreation and Health Committee, Councilman Sherman.
Thank you. I attended the Board of Health meeting on May 19th. They discussed plans for the rabies clinic in the autumn, possible date being thrown around as 11/17, and there was much discussion whether to do it at the DPW garage or back at Borough Park. We were leaning towards Borough Park. I believe they'll be reaching out to Patrick and Kelly regarding that. On June 7th, Northwest Bergen Health Commission is hosting a food handler training course in Spanish at the library here in town. I'll give Kelly the flyer on that. You could sign up It's a 2-hour course on proper food handling. On June 8th, they're hosting a Moderna vaccine booster clinic at the ambulance building. The Board of Health was given 30 COVID tests to distribute to Waldwick residents, and they're trying to decide the best way to distribute them. I believe they'll be contacting Patrick about that as well. They're looking to restart the stigma-free program, but they do need a new leader. The woman in charge, Mrs. Fink, can no longer lead the stigma-free, but she's willing to offer her guidance. They said that would come from the mayor to appoint a new leader to the stigma-free, I believe. They continued their COVID work, tracing, education, et cetera, contacting the schools and helping them out. They sent their inspectors out to some of our residents who were in violation of our new no-feed deer ordinance, and they educated the residents on why they should not be feeding the deer. I made some suggestions to the board members and the people who run the Board of Health, Mr. Dorsey, with suggestions of programs that they should look into offering. Ted Bell Park is moving along. I saw the little ones playing on it today, and the park was actually packed. There was probably 40 children playing on it, and they were having a very nice time. Parents were there, children. It was lovely to see. I saw the Emily Rice playground is back open and the slide is being used. I saw that today as well. It looks like a lot of fun. The flowers that the beautification committee planted, the irises are now blooming. Some of the grasses are starting to bloom at Borough Park, so that's nice to see. Tomorrow night at Borough Park, Kinderhook will be performing at 7 p.m. Bring your chairs and some food to donate, which we will bring to the food pantry. We're asking all our residents and anyone who attends the concert to please remember to bring food to help those unfortunate people in our surrounding area. Registration for the pool is ongoing. The discounted rate goes through 4 p.m. on May 27th. This weekend is Memorial Day, so if you want your discounted rate, please get that in before May 27th at 4 p.m. I'd like to congratulate the Chamber of Commerce, as the mayor did, on a successful 5K. It was a wonderful day with many volunteers, and it was very well run. Good course, a lot of volunteers on the course, a lot of our residents out cheering the runners. There was a large group on the top of, what's the name of that street? Longview, Lockwood, by the tennis courts.
Lindbergh.
Oh, Lindbergh.
Lindbergh Parkway. There's a large group, and there's this pretty nice sized hill. So it was nice to have them up there cheering us on as we were running. I wanted to congratulate the girls from Troop 95519, led by Kara Lindner. They completed their silver award despite many obstacles over the past 18 months. These girls were able to transform an overgrown section of the HCA Park into a beautiful butterfly garden. It really looks beautiful. They did a very nice job, and they were very proud of themselves, as they should be. I want to congratulate the Beautification Committee on planting flowers at all the Welcome to Waldwick signs in Waldwick. We did this work this past Saturday. It was very hot, but we got it done. We planted in front of the Christopher Goodale Public Safety Building. And in that same area, we weeded a 3-foot-tall bag of weeds from Monument Plaza. So it will be all looking nice for our Memorial Day celebration. I collected myself a bag full of trash of litter from the side of the road on Harrison that runs next to the giant farmer's market, a big giant bag of trash. I did notice, and I mentioned to Patrick, and he is going to be following up, the dumpsters of Giant and all those stores there are overflowing. There's nowhere left for the litter to go other than blow around the neighborhood, and it's a complete eyesore, and it's ruining the neighborhood. As I said, I picked it up on Saturday, and today I could have went and filled another half a bag of trash. It's very frustrating. I will be extending an invitation to the WAFA committee to attend the Ted Bell Park ceremony that's going to be held later in June. And I wanted to congratulate all of our graduates from Waldwick, kindergarten, elementary school, middle school, high school, college, and beyond. My niece Lauren graduated from TCNJ, and my niece Emily will graduate from Waldwick High School. I'm proud of every graduate's accomplishments, and I wish them all continued success in their future. And a big welcome home on that same note to all college students who are coming back into town. And I want to extend a happy Memorial Day, and I'm looking forward to marching in the parade. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Public Works Committee, Councilman Ritchie, do you have anything to report?
Thank you, Mayor. No report this evening. I apologize for my absence.
That's okay. Building and Grounds Committee, Councilman York.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I was away from May 14th to May 23rd, so I missed the 5K. Sorry I couldn't run in that stand, but he's not even here to say sorry to, but maybe he's listening from home. Terry, you just mentioned, I want to remind everybody about the Memorial Day Parade on the 30th. I think you're assembling, what, at 10 o'clock, is it, or
9:30.
9:30, up at McKay. And under resolutions tonight, we're going to be awarding some ADA curb work to a contractor that's worked for us before. We're also going to discuss a land possible easement acquisition in the HCA Park. If you recall, a couple of us had visited the NWBUA facility last time prior to the meeting, and Patrick and I were chatting that there actually is a supposed representative to Waldwick, which I got her name when I was there last time. And I spoke to Allison Gordon, the board secretary, to get her contact information, and I did reach out to her, but I never heard back. I gave her my cell, gave her my email, and even though I was away, I checked, so I guess I'll try again. And I tried to confirm that she lived in town. I don't know.
She does.
She does, Mary Ann Ortega?
Yeah.
Okay, I don't know her, but.
When she first got on the board, she met with me and at the time, Councilman McNamara.
Is she an attorney, or?
That I don't know.
My understanding is she's an attorney for the county.
Yeah, okay, yeah, all
She's a
right.
very nice woman, very smart. She knows
Yep.
a lot about the sewer.
Okay, good. And then, Terry, you had mentioned dumpsters. Are those inside of enclosures, or are they just out?
They're just out
Okay.
floating in the.
Yeah, as you guys know, I'm a commercial general contractor, and a lot of towns have ordinances that all commercial dumpsters need to be inside of enclosures with screening. I've built dozens of them, and that's something I think we should consider. I don't know if it can be retroactive or kindly forced upon existing facilities, but I think that's something that maybe, Paul, at the planning board, when you see commercial applications coming in with, dumpster enclosures that they're normally enclosed, dumpsters, everybody always wants to know where to put the dumpsters, but why don't we ask if they would erect an enclosure around it, please? And that's all I have for my report.
Okay, thank you very much. Borough Administrator Patrick.
No report. Thank you, Mayor.
Borough Clerk Kelly.
Thank you, Mayor. Resolution number 2022-207 is to authorize the liquor license renewals for 2022-2023. 6 of our 9 licensees have met all the requirements to be included for renewal at this time. 2022-210, accept the resignation of Ken Almeida as clerk 1 in my office effective next Friday. Ken is moving on and looking to go back to school, so we wish him the best in his future endeavors. Right now, the big push for me is elections. I don't know why this is. This seems to be. No? elections, we have June 3rd to June 5th is early voting period. The early polling locations and instructions are on our website, but the hours are Fridays and Saturdays 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. and Sundays 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. A reminder, June 6th by 3 p.m. is the deadline for in-person mail-in ballot applications at the county clerk's office. And June 7th is the primary election with our polls open from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. And you should see your sample ballot will have your location, your polling location on it. Just a reminder that Waldwick does have a vote-by-mail drop box. It's located behind Fire Company number 1 in the police station. You can't miss it. It's red, white, and blue. I have some signs out there to direct you to it. So if you are doing a vote-by-mail, you can put it in that drop box up until 8 p.m. on election night. That's elections. Also, our website has a ton of information with regards to our sample ballots. They are actually posted. There are 6 of them because we have 6 districts and we're voting for county committee this year. So each district has a different group of people on for county committee. So that's the only difference on the sample ballots. There's also videos on 3 ways that you can vote in an election and how to complete a vote by mail ballot. The county is still looking for poll workers for election day for Tuesday, June the 7th. I did have 2 people call me today, so I was very happy about that. I'm still waiting for the county to give me our how many people we have so far. So if you're interested, you can call the County Board of Elections, 201-336-6225. Or you can just call me and I can give you the information. Voting machine delivery is going to take place Thursday, and I'll go to each location to verify that the machines are in their correct locations and certify that to the county after that. I have very happy that I'm now able to send the 2 police officers to the county with the election returns on election night, and I'll stay behind and continue the work along with Colleen and Patrick to complete the spreadsheets and get all the other materials in order for the county to pick up the next day. So that was kind of a sigh of relief for me not to have to go down there and then come back and do the rest. So that was good. The vehicle audit update, I mentioned this last time. I did have the vehicle audit. 6 updates needed to be made. 3 were changes to values that they had that weren't up to what they should have been. 1 change was in a VIN number, and we had 1 vehicle no longer in service, and 1 piece of equipment was also deleted. The pool registrations are slow moving. We have 791 people registered for the pool. Last year total we had 1,628, so we're halfway there. I expect in the next month that's when people are going to, right when school gets out, right before that, that's when the push will be. So just remind you again that Friday, May 27th at 4 p.m. is the last time Waldwick residents will receive that $10 discount per ticket. And my office is in the process of doing park and ride renewals. Thankfully, this program has taken off and is done just about entirely online. So that's very helpful. We just basically print that out and then send everybody their new tags. And that's all I have. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Borough Attorney Craig Bazan.
Thank you, Mayor. Just so the council's aware, on Resolution 2022-204, the developers agreement, there was a slight change. I had to make a slight change to the last paragraph in the agreement pertaining to the developers' fees. The approval that was received was purely for a subdivision, and we had the language in there as if the developers' fees would be calculated for the actual homes that would be on the lots. And since there's no plans for homes yet, we can't calculate the fees, so we just had to revise that language just so everybody's aware. The only other matter I have is I'm pleased to report that under the opioid settlement that the state reached with the manufacturers, Waldwick is going to receive $4,236.39. The settlement paperwork that we received is about 700 pages, and I have not had a chance to go through everything, so I will skim it and get to Patrick the relevant portions as to how you apply that, how you can claim it, what you can do with it. And, that's the state came through with that. And relevant to this evening, the county has scheduled our county tax board hearings for tomorrow afternoon. There's 3 appeals this year. They are all I'll just say we're pretty confident that they're going to turn out the right way for this year. So that's all I have, Mayor. Thank you.
Consent resolutions and resolutions of the governing body.
I don't know, can you hear me or no? Not really? Be resolved that the following resolutions herewith listed by consent, having been considered by the governing body of the Borough of Waldwick, are hereby passed and approved. 2022-195, approval of consent. 2022-196, approval of minutes, regular meeting, May 10, 2022. Policy votes, A. Stephanie Fiorentino requests to hold a block party on May 30th from 1 to 9 p.m. with alcoholic beverages being served. B. Mark Goodell requests to use Pavilion B on July 16th from 1 p.m. to 8 p.m. for a celebration of life with alcoholic beverages being served. C. Deb Delavecchia requests to use Pavilion A on August 20th from 2 p.m. to dusk for a birthday party with alcoholic beverages being served. 2022-197, award a fair and open contract to La Forza Construction LLC for 2022 borough-wide ADA curb ramp upgrades in the amount of $51,162. 2022-198, award a non-fair and open-ended contract with Precise Electrical Motor Works, Inc. in an amount not to exceed $30,000. 2022-199, award a non-fair and open-ended contract with Capital Supply Construction in an amount not to exceed $40,000. 2022-200, award a fair and open contract to Mall Chevrolet for purchase of one fire department chief's vehicle in the amount of $39,967.65. 2022-201, award a fair and open contract to 1075 Emergency Vehicles for outfitting of the fire department's chief vehicle in the amount of $20,036.67. 2022-202, award a fair and open contract to Foley, Inc. for a wheel loader in the amount of $274,324. 2022-203, award a non-fair and open contract to Community Grants, Planning and Housing for housing rehabilitation, administrative services, and case management services, an amount not to exceed $25,444. 2022-204, authorize execution of a land use developers agreement with the estate of Jean D. Martini. 2022-205, authorize naming of the new borough roadway. 2022-206, approve offer to HCA for easement. 2022-207, authorize liquor license renewals for the 2022-2023 year. 2022-208, authorize opt-in to examination exemption civil service hiring procedures. 2022-209, accept the resignation of Robert C. Dixon Jr. as police officer effective May 17, 2022. 2022-210, accept the resignation of Ken Almeida as clerk 1 effective June 3, 2022. 2022-211, appointment to the Waldwick Green Team. 2022-212, appointments to the Waldwick Goose Patrol. And 2022-213, authorize the Borough of Waldwick's tax collector to prepare and mail estimated tax bills in accordance with PL 1994, Chapter 72, and 2022-214, payment of vouchers.
Do I have a motion and a second? Yes.
I'm wondering if we could vote separately on 2022-208?
Okay. Do I have a motion and a second?
As amended.
Yes.
I'll make the motion.
By Don, second by Terry. Anyone have a question?
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I'm going to address 2022-213 to mail estimated tax bills. Basically, we can't finalize the tax rate until Bergen County completes its budget process and certifies its tax rate. So our options are we either wait until Bergen County does that, and that's uncertain when that might be at this time, or we send out estimated tax bills. We have opted in prior years for estimated tax bills, and we do a pretty good job estimating them based on prior year's experience and what we know about the county's budget. But also, our residents and our taxpayers are accustomed to paying their tax bills at a certain time. This keeps them on schedule. It keeps their budgets intact. And it also assists the borough with our cash flow. If we delay collecting our tax revenues in a timely way, we could run into problems. So this has worked well in the past. It hasn't been an issue for residents, and it's been a big assist for the borough as well. So we'll continue to recommend that we do that. The other resolution is approve offer to HCA for easement. I don't know, perhaps our administrator will kind of review that because it's an item that was in our packet this week. This is the easement that we're seeking in HCA Park for our water filtration system. And basically, you know, there's going to be a couple of items we're going to talk about. I'll talk about the ordinance in a minute. But if Patrick could, you know, kind of review the offer for the HCA for the easement, that'd be helpful. The HCA easement?
Yes. Thank you, Councilman. So the borough has, obviously, is working on engineering plans for the construction of PFAS treatment facilities at our well locations in the borough. We have 2 wells on the east side of town, one behind HCA Park to the north and one off of Malcolm Street to the south of HCA Park. And the plan is at that location, because of the unique location of one of the wells, it would be difficult to get material to, difficult to connect to a sanitary sewer line, which is a requirement of these new treatment systems. It would be difficult to have that all set up at that location. So the proposal is to install water main from that location to that's at the north end, to the well at the south end. And the borough has 2 options to do that. We can take it and run it through the municipal roadway to the south well site, or we can run it through HCA Park and then into the borough's property to that site. There are a lot of advantages to running it through HCA Park as opposed to through the roadway. The borough already has an easement through HCA Park for sewer, and so the proposal is for 2 easements, one permanent easement for the water main that would run through the park, and one temporary construction easement, because we'll need a wider area for construction than we do for the permanent easement. So we've been in negotiation with HCA since last fall, winter, and as part of that negotiation, the HCA Park has submitted a proposal to the borough in terms of their request for us to secure that easement, and the borough has obtained from a appraiser the fair market value for those easements. And so this resolution is approving an offer to HCA for the fair market value as determined by our appraiser for the securing of those 2 easements.
Thank you, Mayor.
Anyone else? I'd just like to touch base on a couple of items. 2022-200 and 2022-201. Today I was in contact with Chief Riker about our Memorial Day service. Him and I, we worked together with the fire department to put together the service and what we have to do as a responsibility in the parade, and he asked me to thank Councilwoman Katie for being very supportive of the new fire chief's vehicle and the assistant chief's vehicle, and he also wants to thank the council for also being very supportive of this. It's something that they feel is very important, and they feel that, you know, this will help them protect and serve the residents here. Also, the naming of the new borough roadway. That's the new roadway that's going to be coming off of Monroe Street, which the DeMartini's home, that's the development we're doing. What we do is usually we name a street after a deceased veteran. About 5 to 7 years ago, a gentleman by the name of Mr. Rockledge, who everyone thought he was a veteran, but he wasn't. His father was. He was the gentleman that used to wear that heavy woolen uniform at the parade, and unfortunately, every Memorial Day he would pass out because it was so heavy and it was so hot. And he came to us a couple of years ago and asked us about him doing a little history about the monument over at the Police Goodell Public Safety Complex. And what he did was he did the whole history of the borough, and he came up with Benjamin Everson, who was a Civil War veteran here. And then it was also told to us by our Chief Messman. He did some searching of history of Waldwick, and he came up with some stuff too. When this was presented to us, what I did was we went out, and him, myself, and a woman that he worked with, trying to give us all the data. We redid all of the monuments here. So if you look at the monuments, you'll see Civil War, and his name is on it. And when he passed away, unfortunately, he passed away, Mr. Rockledge, what we did is you look at the memorials, there's a white rock, and we have his name on it. He wasn't a veteran, but he's the one that made us realize that we're missing a veteran, and we had to add a veteran here and a veteran there. So now, because of him, all of the monuments are all in order. And the next person that a street will be named after will be Mr. Everson. It will be called Everson Drive in memory of him. And then one more, the Geese Patrol. Our administrator got many phone calls from people. A lot of husband and wives wanted to be involved with the Geese Patrol. We picked 5 people, administrator picked 5 people. We reviewed it, and the 5 people that will be on the Geese Patrol for a term ending December 31st, 2022, and then every year it'll be a 1-year term, will be Danielle Matthew, Matthew Zarensky, Amy Pashowski, Deirdre Galvin, and Ellen Riley. The only thing we didn't get is the name of the four-legged friends that are going to really do the job. So what we're going to do is we're going to reach out to them, Patrick will, and ask them if they could please give me the names of our friends so that we could announce their names, because they're as equally important to this project as their masters are. And that's all I have. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mayor. On the naming of the borough roadways, I think that's a great idea. Again, I obviously am confused, but like I said, when I was back on the planning board, I remember we would always do that. Apparently,
Right.
we didn't have it officially in writing that we wanted to do that. So I think there was a list of present streets in town that are already named after certain veterans.
We went after, Kelly and I went through it.
Yeah. So were those people that actually died in service, or were they just veterans that eventually, they
they
were
all
actually
died.
in
never
in
came home.
combat or whatever?
Right, they never
So the
came home.
concept is somebody that died in action?
Right, like
Okay.
when at the Memorial Day service, when they told the bell. to
Yeah,
each person,
exactly.
That's
I
someone that
recognize
never-
all those
Yeah,
names,
they
yeah.
never came home.
So now we have a list of the next few people
Yep.
coming up, 5 or 6 roads?
Yep.
So, okay, good.
Yep.
Because I know, there's been a few new roads that have popped in, unfortunately, that we didn't, get that
Right.
taken care of. Okay. The 2022-203, is that a new agreement? I don't recall getting into that ever before, and maybe Craig or Patrick can kind of talk about that. It sounds like a lot of paperwork we got to have filled out, but I
Yeah.
don't think we're really rehabbing any places, and so.
Yeah, go ahead.
So we're going through all the compliance documents that we need to submit to Fair Share Housing and the courts, which, to show our compliance with the affordable housing in the borough. One of the items is a rehabilitation plan and program for renters or that in town, and you have to have the plan in place. It's a voluntary plan that somebody can, but you just have to put it in place. So we got the proposal from Community Grants Planning and Housing. There's only very few companies that actually do this. The county used to handle this for us,
Okay.
and you could make the application to them. They no longer handle that aspect of it. They're inundated with other items, so we have to hire this company.
And it's
to-
not a
to do it.
significant expense, it's a not to exceed, depending upon how much effort it takes them on a
Right.
case-by-case basis, okay.
Yeah, and that's money that comes out of your COA trust fund. That's not, it's not tax dollar
Right,
money.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Okay. And then on 206, the easement, did we mention to the HCA about our approval at the last meeting to help them out with the generator and the lights in our negotiations, or?
Well, Mayor, if I may? Sure. I think that the consideration of the generator and the lights was separate and apart from our consideration
was.
of the proposed easement. We did let HCA know that the mayor and council had approved the use of the generator and the lights for their upcoming community concert,
Yep.
and they were appreciative of it.
Okay. And then, obviously, if that fails, we've got the ordinance 2217 for eminent domain, which we'll talk about in a moment, I guess, right?
That's right.
So
Yeah,
approving this doesn't prevent us from instituting that?
No, it's actually a prerequisite.
Oh, it is.
So before
have to
you
make an
would,
offer.
right,
Okay.
you have to make what's called a good
Okay.
faith offer with the copy of the appraisal. So you have to authorize the appraisal, and you have to authorize the offer being made before you can even go the ordinance route.
Okay, and then the last one I had was the liquor licenses, but Kelly, I think you just mentioned, I was wondering where the rest of them were, but you said we only got 6 out of 9?
Correct. The
So-
others, I'm still waiting for the other 3. One needs to get tax clearance.
So, well,
No, those are all being approved tonight.
but there's 3 other out there that are not processed yet. And
Correct.
when,
They
like,
have-
Amster sold, like, that just goes with the sale of the business, or how did that, like, become acquired by the, I remember we saw it on,
Yeah,
our
there was
council
a-
packet a
there
while
was a-
back, but it's theirs to basically sell and reestablish with
Yeah,
the town.
it's Hal India.
Yeah,
It's-
I remember
it's
that,
Amsterdam.
yeah, okay,
There was a
Yeah, I remember that.
a person-to-person transfer.
okay. And the new, like, brewery, that's a special type of liquor license thing?
That's a state-issued license, I have nothing to do with that.
And are we limited about how many of those we can do as
We-
well, or?
We have no control over that, that's
So there
the
could be
state.
10 of them possibly? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, cool, thank you for the education.
Anyone else? Yes.
On 212, the appointments to the Waldwick Goose Patrol,
Mhm.
these are people with their dogs who are going to be chasing geese? Don't we have to have them pass a test or something? Or these,
Yeah, there'll be a few steps before you see dogs in park. So this is just setting up the board. The board will then set up rules and do some recruiting to get people involved. They'll administer the testing of the handlers and the dogs, and then the dogs will get out onto the field. But the next thing that you will see before you is a proposed rules of the participants in the Goose Patrol that the mayor and council would approve. This is just setting up the 5-member board that will kind of govern the Goose Patrol as a whole.
okay, thank you.
So there is more for anybody who's interested. There's more opportunity to
Yeah,
be
I
involved.
sent you an
Yeah,
email.
so this is just for the 5 people on the board.
Okay,
Yep.
perfect, thank you.
Anyone else? Clerk, take the roll.
Okay, this is,
Just
yeah,
without
this is
208.
for everything, yeah.
Except,
As amended
Without
with the
208.
removal of 2022-208, which will go for separate
Right,
action. Mr. Bjork,
yes.
Ms. Sarkola,
Yes.
Mr. Ritchie.
Yes.
Ooh, good job. Mr. Schatz,
Yes.
Mr. Shalera.
Yes.
Mrs. Sherman.
Yes,
Okay, then we go to 208.
Do I need a motion and a second?
3-0.
No, I don't want to read it again.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Motion by Councilman Sherman, second by Councilman Shalera. On the question, the one that you called it for.
yeah, I was just, I wanted to pull it to vote on it separately because I want to see us continue to use the civil service list for hirings. And that's my reason.
Anyone else have a question with this? So you're saying that you don't want it, you're not in favor of this? You want to keep the civil service?
Yes.
But-
If I can just make a note, and I think you know this, but so for everyone's clarification, we still will pursue with getting a civil service list and evaluating those who are eligible for appointment on the civil service list. And that's a process for the open position at the police department that we've already started. The list of eligibles, there are 10 people that we had requested. They received mailings this week, and they can respond back to the borough to say if they're interested or not in appointment. So we're still working through that process, but the alternate route gives us the ability to appoint someone who has a police training certificate from a New Jersey Police Academy that had gone to the academy alternate route, which means they went to the academy prior to being appointed as a police officer in a municipality. That can be a tool used by the borough, especially in instances where we're looking to fill specific positions, so, or meet specific needs of the department. So just another tool in the tool belt.
Anyone else?
So
Yes,
at the point we get the civil service list and say we go through to 10, you said there's 10 for Mr. Dixon's position? And we say, for some reason or another, none of those 10 filled it. Then we go into this other group, and, or not then, but we simultaneously, I suppose, and we look at the other applicants that have not actually gone through the program, and it's up to the mayor and council to approve that person, correct?
At the end of this, it's always up to the mayor and council to approve whoever's going to be a police officer,
Right.
regardless of if they come off the civil service competitive list or if they come off of the alternate route list, which would be an open application process.
Right.
But again, and because of that, it's up to the mayor and council on how that process works. I think that you don't have to exhaust the civil service list before moving on to the alternate
You don't,
route
okay.
list, if you don't want to. And,
Right.
and there are likely many more eligibles on the civil service list, but they won't give you a full list. So we have one position, I asked for 10
Right.
names. That's kind of typically how they work. If you go to them and say, we want to see 50 names, they'll say 50 for one position, no, here's 12. So we asked for 10, and we'll work through those 10 candidates, and at the same time, we may consider alternate route candidates.
Yeah. I think the fact that Mr. Messner's, in favor of it, I look at it favorably. I'm not quite sure, Terry, if you can explain maybe what you think's, why he would approve it, but you guys think it's a bad idea.
I just like the fact that on the civil service test, we're hiring the person who scores the best on the exam as opposed to someone who could afford to put themselves through the academy. I'd rather have someone who scores high on the exam.
I think that my consideration and the chief's consideration is the exam looks at how you rank or how you fare on a written exam only. Whereas, if we are looking to, we want a police department that reflects the residents we have in the borough, right? So, it reflects them in all demographics. We have 21 officers on the police department, we don't have any female officers. So that may be a need that we're looking to fill. That's not a need that is reflected in any scoring of civil service applications. And so by having alternate route candidates allows you some possibility, maybe not all possibility, but some possibility of appointing someone maybe to fill a specific need that the borough has and wanting to reflect the demographics of our community that isn't always available when only hiring off the civil service list. Something to consider.
Anyone else? Clerk, take the roll.
Mr. Bjork?
Yes.
Ms. Saracola?
Yes.
Mr. Ritchie?
Yes.
Mr. Schatz?
Yes.
Mr. Shalero?
Yes.
Mrs. Sherman?
No,
Just clarify who made the motion to approve.
Terry?
Not to approve,
Yeah.
to deny.
No, she made the
She
motion.
motioned to, should have went, shouldn't have made it.
Yeah,
If you're going against it, you should have made it. All right,
so we just need a motion to approve.
we have one by Katie.
Okay,
Katie and Don.
just to clarify that.
When you're not going to vote for something, you don't make the motion.
well, I didn't make the motion, you told me I didn't.
Agreed. 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 That's what happened.
Excuse me?
I think if you could listen back, I think when you said that she made the motion, she didn't actually make the
Okay.
motion, I
Oh,
don't think.
I apologize.
It's just a matter of semantics, no big
No
deal.
problem. I
I thought
apologize.
you could make a motion to deny, actually, but you can't.
You could make a motion to deny.
Yeah, then we would have to change our votes the other way around.
You could, in theory, make a motion to call for the vote.
Right, right.
And vote yes or no.
Yeah.
You know,
Clear as mud, you
Can't
got
make
it.
the motion to approve and then
Right, of course. Yeah,
Just-
okay,
That was my mistake.
proceed.
understood.
Okay, public hearings. Adoption of ordinance. Would the clerk kindly read ordinance number 2022-15?
Ordinance number 2022-15, an ordinance amending chapter 48B, section 64-4.2, summer recreation programs to add swim team at Waldwick swim team.
Anyone from the council like to comment on this ordinance that was just read? Nope. If not, I close the council's comments. I open up the public. Anybody from the public would like to comment on this ordinance that was just read? If not, I close the public's comments and ask for a motion and a second to pass this ordinance on second reading, and that the clerk be authorized to advertise it in local legal newspapers as required by law. I have a motion and a second. Motion by Councilman Shalero, second by Councilman Bjork. Take the roll, please.
Mr. Bjork?
Yes.
Ms. Saracola?
Yes.
Mr. Ritchie?
Yes.
Mr. Schatz?
Yes.
Mr. Shalero?
Yes.
Mrs. Sherman?
Yes,
Okay, introduction of ordinances. Will the clerk kindly read ordinance number 2022-16?
Ordinance number 2022-16, bond ordinance to authorize the undertaking of various water system treatment improvements in, by, and for the water utility of the Borough of Waldwick in the County of Bergen, State of New Jersey, to appropriate the sum of $5 million to pay the cost thereof, to authorize the issuance of bonds to finance such appropriation, and to provide for the issuance of bond anticipation notes in anticipation of the issuance of such bonds.
A motion and a second is in order to move and pass this ordinance on first reading, and that the clerk be authorized to advertise in the local legal newspapers required by law, setting a public hearing 2 weeks from tonight's meeting at 7:30 PM or soon thereafter, as the matter may be reached. Do I have a motion and a second? Motion by Councilman Shalero, second by Councilwoman Saracola. On the question.
Thank you, Mayor. So this is a bond anticipation for our water utility. So I think the first thing that's important to point out is that this is going to be repaid, the debt that's going to be repaid by the water utility, not by the tax rate. But just to clarify, this is funding that we're lining up for our new filtration system that we've been talking about for the past year or so. There's been several steps to this project. Of course, first it's identifying a solution, hiring the engineering and the expertise to design it. We're getting to the steps of providing funding. We've talked in prior meetings about grants that we've been researching and loans from the iBank, things like that. So, this is just another step we have to take. Now, one of the things you might notice is it's a little higher amount than we've been talking about. This is just a precaution. Costs are going up on materials, supplies, and everything else. So we just want to make sure, since the ordinance process is very lengthy, that we seek approval for more funding than we need. We can always back off on that until we sign purchase orders and things like that. We're not actually spending the money. But this is the high end of what we think the project may go to, though we're thinking it's not going to get that high. We just wanted to be careful about that. So this is the first step of providing the funding with the bond anticipation notes. And we'll be talking about it, several times more in the coming weeks and months as the project progresses. Anything else?
Yes.
Don, and you hit it on the head. It used to be like $3.5 million. We're now asking for $5 million. Does that also include the first one that we did over on Schuler, or is that separate and done already?
The one we did was just a lease.
Yeah, I know, but I guess the cost to pay for that lease, was that taken care of separately, or would that be taken care of as part of this bond ordinance as well?
The purchase of that currently leased facility is included in this bond.
But not the expense of the initial lease?
The expense of the initial lease was paid for out of I think a portion of it was borrowed money from the water department bond in previous years, what we could, the pad and the piping. The lease we couldn't bond for, so that was paid out of a prior year current fund appropriation in the water utility.
And the easement, if the offer goes ahead, would that come out of this as well?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, and then if we do this eminent domain thing we're about to speak to, then there's no cost to the,
No,
no purchase cost, but there's
That's right.
attorney's fees.
Well, the purchase, if we were in the unfortunate position of going through the full eminent domain process, then there would still be a fair market value owed
there would
to HCA, and there would also be other expenses. We would still have to return the site to the same condition it was prior, so there's expenses to that as well. But all of that could be charged to this bond ordinance.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Let's take the roll.
Mr. Bjork?
Yes.
Ms. Saracola?
Yes.
Mr. Ritchie?
Yes.
Mr. Schatz?
Yes.
Mr. Shalero?
Yes.
Mrs. Sherman?
Yes.
Clerk, kindly read ordinance number, oh, I'm sorry.
This will be resolution 2022-217. This is amending the capital budget pursuant to NJAC 5:30-4.4B.
Do we have a motion and a second? By Don, second by Paul. Anyone have a question?
This is just amending the capital budget to include updated figures for the cost of this. So, the state requires us in our capital budget to lay out everything we're going to borrow money for, and anytime we change that, we're required to adopt by resolution an amendment. to the capital budget.
Anyone else? Clerk, please take the roll.
Mr. Bjork?
Yes.
Ms. Saracola?
Yes.
Mr. Ritchie?
Yes.
Mr. Schatz?
Yes.
Mr. Shalero?
Yes.
Mrs. Sherman?
Yes.
Clerk, kindly read ordinance number 2022-17.
Ordinance number 2022, number 17, an ordinance authorizing and directing that title and possession of an easement over, under, and through certain real property situated at tax block 73, lot 1, owned by the Highlands Community Association, Inc., located within the Borough of Waldwick, County of Bergen, State of New Jersey, be acquired by eminent domain or purchase or gift.
A motion and a second is in order to move and pass this ordinance on first reading, and that it be advertised in local legal newspapers as required by law, setting a public hearing 2 weeks from tonight's meeting at 7:30 p.m. or soon thereafter as the matter may be reached. Do I have a motion and a second? Motion by Councilwoman Saracola and second by Councilman Bajor. Anyone have a question? Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mayor. So, I want to, preface this by saying that I am a resident of the Highland Community Association part of town. I'm a former volunteer officer serving as president, vice president of the association. So I have to say that, I've been a little disappointed in the way that the representatives of the HCA are handling this now. The HCA part of our community and the officers that represent it today are still part of the Borough of Waldwick. So it's just a little disappointing that it may come to us taking these extreme measures to have access to property that we need to complete a project that's going to benefit the entire community, including the residents in the Highlands Community Association. So, as the attorney and the administrator said earlier, we passed a resolution to make a good faith offer. Given the, our administrator called it a proposal from the HCA, it really is a list of demands of the things that they want in exchange for giving us access to complete this project. I think is really not indicative of a community organization that's serving the best interests of the community. So very disappointed in that. So let's hope the resolution that we approved tonight is sufficient for our administrator to negotiate terms with the HCA and give us access that we need. This is a lengthy process to go through. It'll involve our attorney and the legal system, making things very much more complicated than it needs to be. And, it's just unfortunate we have to go this route to provide a benefit to the residents of our community. So, I know this is just the introduction. We're going to talk about this more at the public hearing. Perhaps somebody from the HCA board will come and explain their position as well. I suspect they won't, but oh, great. So so it'll be really interesting as we progress through this process, to see how well we're able to negotiate the offer that the mayor and council approved tonight.
Anyone else?
Craig, in the last sentence, it says this ordinance shall take effect immediately. So can you kind of paint a time frame? We go into final negotiations, we tell them we want this resolved by XYZ date. If it's not, this clicks in?
Well, yeah, so the way the process works out, because we've never really dealt with this, we've never had to deal with this. You previously authorized the resolution to make the good faith offer. So what we do is we will send them a formal letter with the copy of the appraisal making the offer and saying this is pursuant to the statute, yada, yada, yada. The ordinance, we hope to continue those negotiations. The problem is we're under a time crunch, so we wanted to introduce this ordinance tonight because we know that an ordinance takes 2 meetings in order to go into effect. So we'll introduce this ordinance tonight. We'll continue these negotiations. Hopefully before the public hearing, we have an agreement. If we don't have an agreement, we'll have the public hearing on this ordinance at the next meeting. And then if we don't have, an agreement, once that ordinance gets published, then I'm authorized then at that point to file the condemnation papers.
So basically mid-July then, it would seem that these negotiations need to come to a conclusion, and if not, the eminent domain would kick in?
If I can add a piece
Go ahead.
to consider. So the next scheduled meeting of the mayor and council is June 21st. In June, July, and August, we have one meeting per month. So my request to the mayor and council is to consider having a meeting earlier than that, so that, again, because of the urgent nature of this, the installation of these treatment facilities, we would ask that we have an interim meeting between now and June 21st. The ordinance is required to be published for 10 days before we have a second reading, and 7 days? 7 days, thank you, before we have a next meeting. That, we'll get it in a paper Sunday, Monday, that brings us into the following week. It would kind of follow our pattern to have the meeting on Tuesday, the 8th, but that is June 7th, but that's, I'm one off every time here. The next one will be June 7th, which is Tuesday, but that's the primary election. So I would ask the mayor and council to consider having a special meeting on Monday, June 6th at 7:30 to consider this item on second reading. That is a consideration that needs to be made before the adoption of this ordinance, or with the adoption of this ordinance, because in the ordinance it says when the public hearing on this ordinance will be held.
I'm available on the 6th for what it's worth.
And I can say that if, let's say we're closed, you could still have this public hearing. Just because you
Right.
adopt the ordinance doesn't mean we have
And
to
you're
file
gonna
the
institute
papers,
it,
right?
correct, yeah. But at least it gives a negotiation deadline. so-
Correct.
And that's, I think, quite important. And I'd like to see if we would, I mean, I don't know what this gentleman's going to say later, but maybe we can get somebody here from the HCA to actually say something, but maybe not. Maybe we don't need it.
And I did make the president of HCA aware that at tonight's meeting, we would be considering a resolution to make them an offer and considering this ordinance on introduction.
Anyone else? You may call the roll.
Mr. Bjork?
Yes.
Ms. Saracola?
Yes.
Mr. Ritchie?
Yes.
Mr. Schatz?
Yes.
Mr. Sholero?
Yes.
Mrs. Sherman?
Yes.
Will the clerk kindly read ordinance number 2022-18?
Ordinance number 2022, number 18, an ordinance amending Chapter 97 zoning, Section 67.10, street names to include reference to naming of streets after deceased Waldwick veterans.
Motion and a second is in order to move and pass this ordinance on first reading, and that it will be advertised in local legal newspapers as required by law, setting a meeting for tonight's meeting, 7:30 p.m. or soon thereafter, as the matter may be reached, 2 weeks from tonight's meeting. Do I have a motion and a second? Motion by Councilwoman Sherman, second by Paul. What this is what we talked about before, that what we're doing is, from now on, whenever a street has to be named, we will name it after a veteran. We do have the list, as Greg asked us. Kelly has the list, we went through it, we've realized who's on the list, who's not, should be on the list. And as we did, Mr. Everson will be the next one up. After him, there's a list of other veterans that are on the list. Anyone else? Clerk, take the roll, please.
Mr. Bjork?
Yes.
Ms. Saracola?
Yes.
Mr. Ritchie?
Yes.
Mr. Schatz?
Yes.
Mr. Sholero?
Yes.
Mrs. Sherman?
Yes.
Anyone from the council have unfinished business? Yes.
The, well, old business, I guess?
Yeah. you do it.
Yeah. The Lions Club's working on that agreement for the council members. It's not quite ready yet. Craig, did your replacement bring you up to speed on that issue?
Yes.
Okay, so if we have any questions, maybe we'll reach out to you, but we're gonna take the lead on drafting it similar to some of the documents that the town already has. We did the liquor licenses. What's the status of actually the project for the parking lot?
Still in Boswell review. So they're doing QA/QC review right now. So that means they're just about done.
Okay. And then can you send me the Route 17 access proposals you got from the?
I have two. I'm waiting on a third.
Yeah, if you just send me them,
I'll
I'll
send it.
give them time to read them.
Yeah, I'll circle in with
Yeah.
the full mayor. and-
Because we had talked about maybe some type of removable chain or something,
Yeah.
and, you know, I know the fire department's concerned about being able to back up
I
and
reached
turn
out
around,
to-
but if we
I
get
re-
rid of that.
Right, I reached out to the police, the fire chief today, and he is in favor of doing anything of that nature, closing off the street with a chain or closing off it with a fence. He feels that the street should remain open. If the county and the state say they should be open, and the way they want to move forward with it, he's supporting that. I spoke to him tonight before he went to Wyckoff, because they're in mutual aid to Wyckoff.
Yeah, and, you know, the counterpoint, I guess, is the residents, and as long as we can satisfy the fire department that they're able to manipulate their truck properly with this idea, I think we should ask them about that. We understand they don't want to do it, but if we're going to do it, maybe this is a solution.
Well,
Okay.
they also brought out about the Mexican rate.
Oh, even,
My response to you, I thought you were asking about the proposals for the
I
traffic.
was.
Okay, all right, so we're on the same page. So
Yeah.
you'll get those,
Yep.
I'll circle them to the full mayor and council. Hopefully I can get the third one before the end of the
okay, and then the lining of, I forget the name of the brook over there by Yvonne Street, you know, along the high school property.
Mhm.
Where are we at with that whole
DEP.
DEP stuff? Is that going to be months, I guess, Paul, or?
Roll of the dice.
Yeah, okay.
Now, it's a different area of the DEP, so, than what we had done with the water, so hopefully it's quicker than that.
Any other unfinished business? New business? Anyone have new business? Yes.
Thank you. I saw on Patrick's memo that a committee is being put together to study a new fire truck purchase, and several firefighters were named on that committee, as well as Councilwoman Sarah Cola. And I was hoping that Patrick could be included in that committee to,
He is.
okay.
I
Okay.
already reached out to the police chief, and the fire chief, and told him that somebody from the council besides the commissioner, and I recommended that we have that.
Okay, perfect. And then one last thing, please. In light of some of the problems that have been occurring at public gatherings, I'm wondering if during the ceremony on Memorial Day, if we could get a fire truck or a dump truck or something to block off that section of roadway so no vehicles could, because everyone stands in the roadway listening to the ceremonies. I'm thinking if we could put a fire truck so there's no potential for a vehicle to drive through the ceremony, as we've seen in parades in other states, if we could get a fire truck or a dump truck or something at each end to block the roadway.
Do we have police cars? They've been there.
But
Yeah, we'll reach
they're
out.
not gonna stop they could, but I'm saying if we put up a fire truck, it's gonna definitely block the entire roadway.
Mayor, if you'd like, I can share the recommendation from the councilwoman with our OEM coordinator, but I would recommend to the mayor and council that it be left to their discretion.
Any other new business? Yes.
Yeah, as I mentioned, I was away, and I actually drove from Denver to St. Louis through a bunch of back roads, and I saw a couple of the towns that had those veterans things, Mayor, on the poles, and they look really nice.
Yep.
And it's amazing how many there were in some of these small towns, and I really am looking forward to seeing that. But it also brings up the question of, if we do that, which I want to do, is it possible to look back at having other things put up on poles temporarily? I know we had an ordinance passed a few years back when we were concerned about certain things, and we decided not to allow a lot of posting on these utility poles. But if we're going to allow this, I'm assuming possibly we could, look back into some other temporary
Well,
measures.
the last time we talked to PCNG, they told us that we were only restricted on certain poles that they had. But
Right.
we can't add any other poles. And the turnout from the veterans is very, very powerful. And what we're gonna probably have to do is, it'll be double-sided, one veteran on one side, one on the other side.
Mhm.
Because there's a lot of veterans that wanna have this.
Right, yeah.
But we could reach out to the, PSEG and see if they'll give us more poles.
Yeah.
But from the last time we looked into this, they weren't happy with giving us any more.
Right, no, but I'm also saying, like, somebody wants to post a flyer about a lost cat or a garage sale or any of that stuff. What's the difference between that and this?
Well, we have
you
an
know.
ordinance that says not to do that. We had residents come here very strongly objecting for any signage on any poles.
Right,
So what we'd have to do is we'd have to look into that ordinance and change it.
okay.
But, I'd hate to do that because we had a lot of concerned residents to be here.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, Not, yes.
Yeah, there are two items here to be considered. There were late additions to the agenda, so they've been placed under new business. And in addition, I have 2 items. The first item, the Environmental Committee has requested to purchase 2 blue containers to collect plastic refuse, plastic bags, bags from laundromats, and they collect those and they turn them over to Trex, and eventually the borough gets a bench out of it. And it's also a way to keep those plastics out of the solid waste stream, so it's a good thing. At the last meeting, I told them that it was possible, but then I remembered that we had been handling some of these requests from committees that weren't included during budget time as a straw poll of the mayor and council. So I would just request that that the mayor and council take a straw poll to approve the purchase of blue recycling containers for the Environmental Commission to collect plastic bag waste. And I expect they're going to be around $270. So, shipping and any other ancillary costs, I think we can get them, if you would say approve $350, I'm sure we could do that for 2.
Where would they be placed?
They were currently and had been at the DPW Recycling Center, at Fire Company 2, and at the library. The one at the library is indoors, so the one that they have there is sufficient, but the one at the Recycling Center and Fire Company 2, because they're outdoors with wind and things, they've been getting blown around. We actually lost one from Fire Company 2, which is why they were looking for heavier duty containers.
I'm wondering if we actually need the one at the firehouse, because most people, well, all people, unless it's curbside, you're taking your items to the recycling center, and that Fire Company 2's on a very busy street. I'm in favor of the bags. I think it's great, but I really don't know how many residents are going to be pulling up to the firehouse to dispose of their bags. I would think they are either going to go to the library or the recycling center.
I can tell you right now, they had 350 pounds in the first 2 weeks of doing it, and that particular container was filled up like within a day of when it was put out there. And then people would drive by with big bags putting in there. They want to get a little bit larger container, and they said that one actually disappeared because it was so light. We don't know if it blew away. If it blew away, it's down a block, or we think it was actually taken. So we wanted to get something more substantial, be able to lock it up against the building also, and as well, all 3 of them have been used a lot, I should say. Right now, we've gotten 350 pounds in a couple of weeks of even using it, and they continue to get filled up.
Okay, I do have a concern. I went to the library the other day, and that bin was overflowing into the lobby, and they probably could have used 3 bins in there. That's how many bags were there. So my concern as part of the beautification committee is, if that is overflowing, where will they be blowing around our town, making me pick up more trash?
Most people who do put in that much there, they basically put it in their own bag and put it inside a bag and leave it to the side. The director, Mr. Raimondo, has been, as long as someone tells them out there, he's been going to try to pick up himself, and then he brings all the bags up to get properly disposed of. So as long as he's notified, I mean, if it's in the library, it was inside. So the library, if it's getting that full up, then they should just let it.
Yeah, no, the woman was very kind, and she said she makes a phone call, and, it's picked up
And Mark
right
picked-
away.
Yeah, Mark goes and picks it
But
up
my
right away.
concern is who's calling at the firehouse to say it's full. Maybe, does he have a schedule? He goes there every day. I just hate to see litter around the town. That's my only concern.
Okay, I'm going to ask that, Patrick, can we get the DPW, if they see it overflowing, to notify Mark to go pick it up? Either one of them. Actually, they know about the one over at DPW. The one at the fire department can either be called by the fire department. The mayor can talk to the chief about notifying us if they see it. They're there every Thursday for drill anyway, so it should be at least every week, if not earlier than that.
Yeah.
One in the library for a month.
Okay, yeah, what we'll do is I'll reach out to the fire department and
Yeah, I could do
reach out
it.
to the fire department and let them know.
Yeah.
And we'll reach out to the library, let them know to call Patrick, and then Patrick will get in contact with you.
Yep.
No.
Maybe there could be a scheduled rotation of pickups instead of just waiting for someone to call.
Well, if it's only got a small amount in it, then.
It's probably going to peter out after a while, too. I
Yeah.
mean, there's this major surge right now, right? I mean, it's
There's
going to be a lot easier in a couple of months, don't you think?
Nobody's giving out bags.
Exactly, that's what I'm going to say. It's just going to be a short duration of a pain in the neck, and then it's just going to be like nothing.
Okay, you know?
Straw poll.
Okay.
What are we doing again? It's just the-
Approving
Yeah,
the purchase
for
of 3
300
containers, no more than 3.
Yeah, yeah, okay.
Mr. Bjork?
Yes.
Ms. Saracola?
Yes.
Mr. Ritchie? Mr. Ritchie?
Yes.
Make
Mr.
them come
Shad?
listen to the-
Yes.
Mr. Shalera?
Yes.
And Mrs. Sherman?
Yes.
Thank you. And the second item, we have some openings, either where we've already been notified of an employee's final day of work, or we anticipate, because of speaking with the employee, that they will notify us shortly. So those positions are for Clerk 1 in the clerk's office. We have 2 police dispatchers that are in the final stages of being hired elsewhere. And we also, I would recommend, hire summer help for the DPW, something that we talked about as part of the budget process, and that we, or maybe prior, and we have some vacancies in DPW now. I know, especially in the summer months, they can use some help. So I would request that we hire 2 summer help people. These are seasonal positions, so the hourly could be, anywhere from $11.90 up through, let's say $15.
We're going to put a restriction on, or are we going to tell them what their responsibilities are before they take on the position?
Yes, I would view them a little bit as like our maybe pet projects, or cleaning, weeding, power washing, things that the DPW, who have a large number of daily tasks, don't always get to those kind of extra things that we ask of them, that are still important things. But I think that, yeah, there would be an expectation for me and an understanding that I'd like to have with the DPW superintendent, that these employees will be able to get a little more direction.
And they'll be supervised by a worker.
They'd be supervised by DPW, and I'm sure some of the work that they would do would be DPW work, maybe weed whacking or mowing. But
And maintenance.
and maintenance, yeah, absolutely. So if you would authorize the advertisement for hiring in those 3 positions.
Everybody all right with that?
Patrick, just with the DPW, I think that's a great idea. I remember last time in negotiations, there was pushback about trying to do this for either snow removal and/or the summer. So it's not in violation of the collective bargaining agreement or anything? Because I'm 100% for it. I think it's awesome.
Yeah, no, and I think for the same reason as snow removal, we're not creating these positions to eliminate their
Correct.
positions, and it's not eliminating their overtime. On the
Well-
snow plowing, it was different because we're restricted by the state, and also by our insurers' best practices to limit the number of hours of the driving. So it makes sense that we have other drivers. Same here. There's only so much work that our DPW can get done in a day, and we have more work that needs to be done. So that's
Eliminate,
That's
I
all
mean,
of us.
you say it's not eliminating overtime, but it'll help reduce some of the overtime, I would hope.
And Mike, I'd like you to be involved with this to make sure everything goes right with them.
Sure.
Very good.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Want to say anything? You just asked everybody and they all said yes.
Yes, I know. Any more, sir?
That's all I have, Mayor.
No, we have.
2 more.
No,
Two more.
that's all I have.
Oh,
Yes. But I appreciate
no,
it.
that's not true.
No.
That's not true?
No. So I do have item B under new business, which
Mhm.
came in late. And the reason I'm bringing it to you is because this block party is on June 18th, so they haven't given us the 21-day notice. But, I don't want to stop people from having a good time here. So I am proposing that that you approve this, provided that we receive no substantial objections. So what happens is, the requirements for block parties is they're supposed to be 21 days in advance. It goes into our email blast twice with people who can give us comments. And I've been here 4 years, I've never gotten a comment. But nonetheless, if we don't get anything substantial objections to this party, I would just ask that you approve it based on that.
Everybody all right with that?
Yeah?
Yep.
And the next one's yours.
So we had a plumbing inspector who has taken a position elsewhere. This inspector was likely only to stay with us through the end of June because our full-time inspector is coming back. They had been out on an extended leave. So we have a short time here to fill. And fortunately, our construction official knows a subcode, a plumbing subcode official who was able to fill in for that short period of time. So this will be for a few weeks. We'll keep the other subcode official on the books. We won't accept his, like a formal resignation, because the way these subcode officials work, if we have absences, it's nice to have somebody that we can call. So this is just approving the appointment of this subcode official, and it would be at the same rate as the subcode official who is stepping aside.
This is an actual resolution.
Resolution,
Yes.
yeah.
2022-218, appointment of plumbing subcode official Peter Sinchera.
Do I have a motion and a second?
Motion to approve.
By Mr. Gregg, second by somebody. Paul. Oh, Mike.
Oh, we're gonna give it to
We'll
Mike.
give it to you, Mike.
Lose out.
Anyone have a question? Mike, you have a question? No, okay. Clerk, please take the roll.
Mr. Bjork,
Yes.
Ms. Sericola,
Yes.
Mr. Ritchie. Yes. Mr. Schatz,
Yes.
Mr. Shalero.
Yes.
Mrs. Sherman.
Yes.
Okay, should we go into close?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, public.
Public comments, anybody from the public would like to comment on anything, please come to the microphone, state your name and address for the record.
Yeah, right.
Good afternoon, or good afternoon. Good evening, it's been a long day. My name is Alexander Pappas. I live at 49 Stewart Street. Mayor Giordano, you might remember me. We met about a year ago.
Yep.
At the Police Academy
Yep.
function.
Yep.
My son George. And Mr. Fossum, we've spoken in the past. How's Doug doing? And Patrick Hyde. It's funny, when I came here, I haven't been a member of the board for very long. They contacted me regarding this because I'm an attorney, and they were not sophisticated in areas of land use and easements and stuff like that.
You know what, could you, I'm
Sure.
sorry to bother you, but could you talk a little bit louder?
Oh, yes.
Put closer to the mic.
Yeah.
So, they're unsophisticated with that type of terminology and stuff. And, some of the members of the board, wanted to make a list of demands of what they thought they should get in return for the easement and stuff. And we had a site inspection with Patrick and myself in there, and Patrick and I spoke and stuff. And I said, let them get their demands out, and we'll bring them back to reality at a later date. Sometimes people just need to get their wish list out. But before I was coming here today in a conciliatory manner until I heard these comments here, basically insulting the other members of the board. I mean, like I said, I haven't been a part of it very long for the board, but I've lived there for 20-plus years, making insulting and disparaging comments about them. These are moms and dads that give up their time, who go there, they do it without pay. They're shoveling and spreading mulch in the park, and they give up their time for it without compensation. And their concerns are primarily, what my concerns are when I heard it, was basically safety, right? Access to the park for the children, and to make sure that it didn't interfere with our revenue. Now, we need the water system. We don't have any issues with that. And a initial threshold question was, well, why go through the park as opposed to alternative methods? And at the site inspection, the engineer explained to us what it was. Now, they'd sent their listed demands on April 14th, and I actually was expecting to get a response sooner from the borough saying that this is nice, but these things are not germane to what you're entitled to as a measured damage, which is the difference between the market value of the property with the easement and the market value of the property without the easement. Now, I did not know that an appraisal had already been done. Now, I know that we're supposed to be required, that we're required to be given notice as to when the appraisal is done, so somebody can accompany the appraisal. Now, I don't know, Mr. Bossing, was that notice ever sent to us?
I'm not going to respond.
Oh, why not?
Because I'm going to advise my clients not to speak with you or answer any of your questions because there is the potential of litigation at this point.
No,
I'm
we
sure
don't
you
wanna-
can appreciate
we don't
that as
wanna
an attorney.
litigate. No one wants to litigate this matter. Absolutely not. Nobody wants to litigate, right? And that's what I said, coming in here in a conciliatory manner to try and just hear what was going on and stuff, and then to be insulted like that by, well, really the other board members, not for me so much. Puts a different face on it. But resolution has always been the key. And if said, I mean, if you're not going to advise us as to when that is, then we're going to have to follow up with a letter saying when was notice given to us. Under the statute, you were required to give us notice. Right? Said that wasn't done, then you're going to have to go out and get another appraisal done. Nobody wants to do that. It's a little society, a little association. No one wants to spend money on council fees and things like that. It's ridiculous. And this is a project that the town sorely needs. I mean, living here 20 years, I've changed probably 5 dishwashers and washing machines because of the hard water. But these are questions that I can help facilitate a solution without having to go through an eminent domain proceeding, which is only going to rankle the HCA members, saying, why is the township trying to take away parts of our property through a proceeding? It can all be resolved very easily, very simply. Basically, just what's the number of the value? And I thought we were actually going to have that sort of informal conversation where I could then turn to the people and say, look, these are the facts of life, right? It's an easement. This is what you're entitled to under it, and so forth. I mean, they put in some extra stuff there regarding the pavement of the street that moves in there and so forth. But again, concerns were initially, from my aspect, safety, where it was going to go, and after it was explained to us that the easement is not going to go through the park grounds itself, but it's going to go through the, what do you call it, the forest, for lack of a better word, that alleviated a lot of our concerns. So our only other concerns were basically about the construction project itself, how long it was going to be, when it was going to take place, how would that interfere with our ability to make revenue. We have contracts with like the Waldwick soccer program where they can use our field during a certain course where they pay us money. It's not a lot of money, but it's enough to cover the dues and stuff like that. So, I mean, you can either answer my question now, Mr. Bossing, or, if you want to take a more formal approach.
I will tell you, we will be sending you the letter with a copy of the appraisal.
Yeah.
You can then take that back to your client,
My client.
bring them out of the clouds, and discuss what reasonable compensation is.
It's not out of the, they're not my client, right? Let's be clear about that. I am not their attorney, right? And again, this is an informal request to ask when was was notice sent, right? That's not a privileged question.
I'm telling you this. You want to be conciliatory, right?
Yes.
That's what you started. We will give you the appraisal tomorrow. Take that number to your client, to your board, and let's discuss what reasonable compensation is. You want to attack the procedure and the litigation, then we're not going to go anywhere.
I'm not attacking anything. I'm not attacking anything. I'm not. I'm just asking a simple question. When was the notice given about the appraiser? If you don't want to tell me, then you don't have to tell me. But you should tell me, because it's not private information, right? Do I have to do an Oprah request for it? No. So let's deal with it and address the matter civilly and practically.
That's what we're trying to do.
Yes.
I'm going to give you a number.
Yes.
Take it, decide what you guys want to do. and we'll go from there.
That's,
Easy.
it is, it's very easy.
So let's be
It's very easy. I want to be friends. I was all about being friends until I had this, to respond to the disparaging comments about members of the community, right? These are good people. These are people that are worried. What's funny?
Because these are good people up here too that are trying to run the town. They volunteer a lot of their time, probably a lot more time than your board members volunteer with all the committees and everything they go to. We've been trying to negotiate with your board for over 6 months, and we've gotten nowhere.
Has
So-
anyone made any comments about any member here? Nobody is. We all acknowledge. They're great. That's why we vote for them, right? So your comparison is not correct, right? Nobody on the board has
So
said,
let's get to a number.
yes, let's get to a number.
You'll have the appraisal tomorrow.
Yes.
Please discuss
But we
it
had
with the
heard,
board and get back to us.
but I had heard from over here saying that they wanted explanations as to what the concerns were, right? This is not just obstinacy, unreasonableness, and piggishness,
So then
right?
address the concerns.
Right. No, I did. I said what the concerns were.
Okay. Then we're done.
Thank you.
Anyone else? If not, I make a motion to go into close. We're going into close. Is there any decision to be made? Close.
Not on mine.
No decisions will be made. I expect that this will be 45 minutes at the most.
45 minutes. Do I have a motion and a second to go into close? Motion by Katie, second by Paul. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.